take the roll calls and everything then?
Yes, I will do roll call, and we are ready whenever you are to start.
Okay, well, welcome. Yep, welcome everybody. This is Thursday, July 9th, and this is our virtual meeting of the Edina Energy and Environment Commission. And I'll call the meeting to order. Jessica, can you please take the roll call?
Chair Jackson.
Here.
Commissioner Dakani. Commissioner Haran.
Here.
Commissioner Hushin.
Here.
Anzus. Commissioner Manser.
Present.
Commissioner Martinez.
Here. Here. I don't know which one.
Commissioner Hilda Martinez.
Here.
Commissioner Setterly.
Here.
Commissioner Seeley.
Here.
Student Commissioner Martinez.
Did you get Haran?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
I didn't hear you, so I'm going to give you another chance here. Commissioner Martinez.
Here.
Thank you. Student Commissioner Maynor.
Excellent. Good to see everybody. So the next thing is the approval of the minutes from last month. Oh, the approval of the agenda, excuse me. So we'll have a motion in a second, and then I want to make a change. So can I have a motion to approve the meeting agenda?
So moved.
That was Melissa. And have a second?
Second.
That's Hilda. And I'm just going to use your first names because it's going to take forever otherwise.
Okay.
So tonight, Jessica had some news that she wanted to share with us. So I'd like to move her presentation up from number 9 to number 7. So after community comment, we'll have our liaison, Jessica Wilson, give her report, and then we'll move on to the reports and recommendations. But some of her news will affect what we do in the reports and recommendations. So can I have a motion to make that amendment to the agenda?
So moved.
That was Richard. A second?
Second. I'll second.
And that was Melissa. So, okay, all those in favor of the amended agenda? Or
Aye.
the amendment to the agenda?
Aye.
So we'll do a roll call for the
Okay.
Commissioner Jackson.
Aye.
Commissioner Haran.
Aye.
Commissioner Hushin.
Aye.
Commissioner Manser.
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Commissioner Setterly.
Aye.
Commissioner Seeley.
Aye.
Student Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Okay, and then can I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
And who is that?
Michelle.
Okay.
Haran.
All right, and the second?
I'll second. Paul.
Okay, and please take the roll again.
Chair Jackson.
Aye.
Commissioner Haran.
Aye.
Commissioner Hushin.
Aye.
Commissioner Manser.
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Commissioner Setterly.
Aye.
Commissioner Seeley.
Aye.
Student Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Okay, so the update I wanted to give you was about the sustainability coordinator hirings.
Yeah, but Jessica, let's do that.
Oh, right, you're right.
Yep. So the next
Go
is the approval of the meeting minutes. Hopefully people had a chance to read them. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from last month?
So moved. Commissioner Haran.
And a second?
Second.
That was Hilda. All right, all those in, can you take the roll on the minutes, please? Unless
Chair
there's discussion. So I'll say aye.
Commissioner Haran.
Aye.
Commissioner Hushin.
Aye.
Commissioner Manser.
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Commissioner Setterly.
Aye.
Commissioner Seeley. Student Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Okay. So now, Jessica, are you giving us the Green Step Cities update?
Yes, I will give you that update. So this was linked in the meeting packet for tonight. So the city of Edina has moved from a step 4 up to a step 5 for the Green Step Cities. So I just wanted to pause and recognize that. And then I've got just a quick set of stats to show you here. So showing all the communities in Minnesota and kind of that slow increase over time as cities achieve higher steps. So then there's the summary for the city of Edina. We've reached step 5 in 2020, and step 5 means that you are recording certain I'm not sure what the terminology, but certain things that you're reporting on, and then you're showing improvement in those categories is what it takes to reach step 5. And so this is a summary for Edina, reducing the KBTU per square foot per year in city buildings, increasing LED traffic lights from 30% to 100% in 2019, increasing city fleet diesel miles per gallon, increasing number of public electric vehicle charging stations, and then some water usage decreases for residential and for business, and then a reduction in summer and winter water usage in 2019 compared to 2018. And then the increase in the number of city-owned and private renewable energy generation sites. So that's some of the changes. I think a lot of communities saw some reduction in water usage because 2019 was such a wet year. So we'll see how that changes if we get into more of a drought year. But so just a quick update on that change. So something to be celebrated.
That chart was not in the agenda.
Right, it came from a newsletter that was sent out from Green Step Cities a couple days ago. I can amend the agenda after the meeting and add it in there. I can send it out.
Yeah,
to the group.
that'd be really helpful. I found the press release from the city to be very vague, and people were asking me about it, and I didn't know how to answer it. Like, what did we do? It's like, well, it says we measured, but this is very helpful to have this chart.
Sure, I can send that out to the group.
Yeah, that's great. And was this did you do this reporting, or was this Chad?
Addis is our residential redevelopment coordinator, and he had some prior experience before his role here at the city of Edina doing some of that reporting with MPCA. So he helped get all that material in, I think, over March and April and May to get that all organized from everybody and submitted.
That's great. Yeah, if it's interesting to see, you know, I don't even know what our goals are in Green Step Cities and stuff. It's always been a vague thing to me, so this is very helpful. And do we continue then to report every year, or now that we've achieved 5, we don't have to continue to report? Do you know the answer to that?
My guess is that we'll continue to report every year just because we want to be able to track our own progress. I'm not sure what it takes to maintain a step 5, if that requires an annual reporting or not. I'd have to check in on that.
Okay. Because yeah, this is great data, and you know, have found that data is very, very important to making progress. So the extent that we could institutionalize is that we know what we're reporting and what we can report. That's really helpful. So any other comments from commissioners?
No, it was great.
Yeah. Okay. And then I lost my agenda here. Oh, here we go. So the next thing is there's no community comment this week, right?
We don't have the intercall set up for folks to make verbal testimony. They can submit correspondence on the correspondence form on the commission webpage if they do. We didn't receive any correspondence.
Okay, great. So we'll move on to your report, Jessica, and your big news.
Yeah, this is an update for the sustainability coordinator hiring. So the position was posted Um, the reason that changed from the hiring freeze to now posting the position is the CARES Act funding came through. So then Manager Neal made the decision to move forward with hiring again. So the position was posted today. If you recall, the position had been posted back in March and there were about 40 applicants. And then as we were just point of reviewing those applications, that's when the decision was made to kind of put a freeze on hiring. So that is open now again today, and that position will close on July 31st. And the people that had submitted their names before will get notified that the position is open again or has been posted again. And then the goal is to get someone on board by October 1st. So in light of that information too, we might revisit the advisory communication that was approved at the meeting last month, where the commission was urging the hiring of someone sooner rather than later. It appears that that is in the works. So you can decide if you'd like to keep that on the July 21st council meeting or remove it.
Oh, I think we should probably remove it, don't you think, guys? Because it was to say we want to make sure that we get that hiring process going, and it sounds like it's going as fast as it can be. Okay.
I'd agree. I would rather not submit a request like that unless, you know, we need to.
Yeah, sure. Let's remove it.
Unless Jess ready in the
Process
work.
is moving on.
The advisory commission is kind of in the queue for the packet. We can take it out of that queue for the packet if you'd like to at this point.
Yes, please.
Okay. That I think would take I'm guessing that would take an action to remove it since it was something that was approved last month.
So can I have a motion to remove the advisory communication to the city council from their packet?
So moved.
Who was that? So who moved and who seconded? My screen is
Richard.
frozen, so I can't see anything.
Martinez.
Okay. I don't know what to do to undo the.
Richard moved.
Paul seconds.
Okay, great. I don't know whether to log out. I don't think I can even log out to redo this. I'm really frozen. Okay, well, let's take a vote on removing it, please.
Sure.
Whoever's got noise in the background, please mute except when you're called on. I don't know who that is.
Carolyn, I didn't hear your response, so I'm going to ask again here. Chair Jackson.
Aye.
Commissioner Haran.
Aye.
Commissioner Hushin.
Aye.
Commissioner Manser.
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Commissioner Setterly.
Aye.
Commissioner Seeley.
Aye.
Student Commissioner Martinez.
Great, thanks everybody.
And I'm Ukasha. I'm on board.
Oh, thank you, Ukasha. I didn't see you. Commissioner Ukasha.
Aye.
Connie.
All right. Let's see. So do we want to just go back, leave the staff comments at the end, or do you want to do all of your report now, Jessica?
I'll leave that up to you.
Okay, well, I guess I'd like to go into the others. I'm going to have to log off and log back on for a minute. So Lauren, I'm going to let you take it from here if you would, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Are we on to your presentation, Jessica?
Yep, this would be the draft conservation and sustainability policy update. and I'm going to pull it up on the screen here. Just got to make sure I got the right one. I think it's right here. So the staff is proposing to revise the policy, and it's proposed to be on the July 21st City Council agenda. So some of the notable changes would be allowing for more than just a single staff person to be funded from that fund, allowing for some public education and events to be funded from that, allowing for above and beyond green fleet to be funded through there, and then also a little bit more clarification on how funds can be used to go above like-for-like replacement for building components. So the fund could not be used just to replace, for example, something like an air conditioner, but if it cost, if there was a marginal increase to get a one that was better or had fewer emissions, it would cover that marginal increase in cost, is what that means at like-for-like replacement. So this is scheduled for the July 21st council meeting, and Engineering Director Chad Milner is seeking your comments as he prepares to bring that to council July 21st.
Was this in our packet of stuff?
Page 12, I think.
So I don't remember what the old version was, but this seems, so you're saying that this is like an increased, we can do more with the fund than we could in the past version?
It clarifies what the spending can be, which is it would cover more staff doing that work. It would cover vehicles which were explicitly ineligible before, and then public education and events was explicitly ineligible. I've got a copy of the former policy. Maybe I.
Yeah,
It's in there.
on page
It's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I saw is that there are more, they increase the part of what it can be fund, right? That's what I understood, that was basically the changes.
Yep.
A question: what's the city's conservation and sustainability work plan?
Mhm.
Is there a work plan for that?
Yep, and that is the sustainability coordinator's work plan is that work plan, I believe. I'd have to pull that up. I'm not super familiar with that on the spot here, but that's what that's referring to, is essentially the work plan of the sustainability coordinator.
So this one is what it's gonna pay for the sustainability coordinator, right? Is it correct?
Right, and then it allows for, if there were going to be more staff, if there were going to be a future position that would support sustainability beyond just the single person, that would help fund an additional person devoted to that specific sustainability work.
I'm wondering if we can't state that at least includes one FTE in number 3 under the eligible expenses. Not just the number and level of employees, but specifically at least one FTE.
Let's see, so here, are you talking for the?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so it should say at least one.
That would be my thought.
Okay.
We don't go below that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Ask, does are these funds spent every year, or can they carry over year after year?
They do accumulate in the fund.
Okay. Is there any provision where some percentage of the fund has to be spent each year, or it's not set up that way?
I don't believe there's any requirement of how much has to be spent each year.
Okay.
I think that would be, yeah, I don't think that's in there.
Okay. My personal opinion is, I mean, I think it's great. I've gotten some feedback over the years about different people having opinions on what these funds are spent on. And to me, if you can broaden the scope of the things that these monies can be used for, you have a better chance of satisfying everybody's opinion. That's just my opinion.
Is it the
I
way?
guess I don't have a flavor for how big the funds are. I mean, how much funds are there? I mean, after you fund a position, how much funding is left?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't, I'd have to check. My guess is it's in the ballpark of $1 million in there right now.
Oh my God, really?
I'd have to check. I think I just broke my own rule of never saying a number out loud. I'd have to check, but I know that there's money in there and we're spending it. And this is going to be part of my update later. Chair Jackson had asked about so sustainability has recently been reorged into the engineering department. And part of that reorg is, we've got some money accumulating in the Conservation and Sustainability Fund. And Manager Neal wants to make sure that we're spending that money and it's not just sitting there. And so part of one reason that we're putting it, that it got reorged into engineering, is engineering department is they great at implementing projects, and we get through a lot of projects. And so I think that was part of the reason, is we're the department that does a lot of project implementation, and Manager Neal had a desire for us to be spending that money to do that stuff. And with the technical expertise in the engineering department, and we also have the facilities division in the engineering department now also, so it's just a lot closer relationship there to get those things done at city buildings anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for like those projects that the engineering department is doing. Is there like someone, or like, are they like covering the part, like the environmental impact of those projects, or are they finding like the most sustainable way to like, I don't know which project they're like working on right now, but or like they've worked on, but like, is there like an environmental concern when they're doing that?
Yeah, some things that come to mind, we look at things like recycling materials. So when streets get reconstructed and a lot of material is removed, a lot of that can actually be recycled. And then we look at the carbon footprint of the things that are getting put back in. So looking at not just reinforced concrete pipe when we're putting in new pipes, but looking at plastic pipes that have less carbon in that whole life cycle, and we can extend the life of it by using plastic. So we're making those kind of considerations and trade-offs and looking at all those factors with an eye on environmental impact and sustainability. And then things like at Braemar, some of the air conditioners needed to be replaced. So our facilities team is looking at that and then saying, what's the best option here? Can we use some of this CAS fund to do kind of the above and beyond just a replacement to get more of that benefit? So just kind of that kind of stuff. And then also looking at with our really small buildings, so a utility building that might be, 50 square feet, something really small, looking at really simple low-hanging fruit like weather stripping and LED lighting. The CAS fund is programmed to be used for that stuff too, to increase efficiencies there.
I'd also like to just mention that originally this position was intentionally kept outside of engineering, just to look at, so we looked at it more as a global sustainability across the enterprise. And so so it didn't get too tied into one department. I understand the value of putting it in the engineering department, but I just want to make sure we go on record or we acknowledge that we really need to do what we can to pull the blinders off and look at sustainability as an enterprise across the city, and not have it just be part of the engineering department. given that it still makes sense, and I can see why it's there, but we just got to keep reminding ourselves of that. And that should be part of the, annual review, however we look at that position, and the job requirements and the goals and things like that to really make sure that it addresses the broader enterprise, if you will.
I agree. I also wanted to add, in addition to my comment before, I wonder if, since we're adding more eligible expenses to the CAS fund, if we can somehow make sure that the funding is prioritized for the staff costs. So could we say the eligible expenses are #1 staff costs, and if there's remaining funds, and then list the rest, just so we can't say let's spend it all on capital improvements and then we don't have any left over for staffing.
Thank you for those comments.
So could the money from this fund technically be used for, like, if we do need like a consultant for the climate action plan, once like the task force and everything?
The way I read this is yes, we can use consulting services that are help accomplish the sustainability work plan.
Excellent question.
That is an excellent question.
Comments? Okay. Well, thank you for sharing this with us. And thanks everybody for your really good comments. This is awesome. So to our work plan kickoff, and Lauren and Hilda, let's look at the climate action plan. Hilda, do you want to kind of take it from here?
So can I just
sure.
say one thing before we get too into the working group? I'm guessing you're kind of headed towards the working group.
Well, yeah. What do we want to do for part B? Because it's hard to tell if you've got something specifically to the work plan.
Yeah, I want to a little bit more. So
okay.
We've only had the chance to meet a few times. Time to start working on the 2021 work plan.
That's right. I can't.
So I've got kind of a work plan instructions here. So the work plans are due September 25th. So I'd like to spend a little bit of time at this meeting and then in August to brainstorm some ideas. So I think today, if we could get a list or some ideas out, and then people can consider them, and then we can prioritize them and decide in August, and then have one more chance for that discussion before we have to finalize it and take action on it in September, so that we can get it done in time for the due date of September 25th. So we have 3 meetings, which includes this one, July, August, and September. So if we can start at least getting some ideas out today, and then we'd have another chance to prioritize the list and then take action in September.
So is our 2020 work plan, we thought we'd look at some of the things that we tabled that were down in the parking lot, or the bike rack. I don't see on here.
So there's the work survey results. If that's kind of got that list of each thing. And then this kind of ties into that next item, which is the climate action working group that this group was considering. As I was looking at that green print today, it seemed like really similar to the work plan planning process. So what we might do is, trying to find my notes on here. some of those things like getting into reviewing what can be done now, those are things that could be a 2021 work plan item. So these kind of go, these are kind of mixed over. I don't want to get too much into that green print topic right now, but I think some of those things as far as like ideas like, well, we want to look into this policy option, or we want to vet these various different actions, those could be work plan items. I think some of the problem with the working group green print that we currently, that draft version is it's for immediate action. And some of it says, you know, we don't have a leader to implement, so let's identify things we can implement without a leader. And there's a little bit of a paradox there. So, and then also the commission doesn't dictate the work plans of staff. So the commission reports to city council and staff report to manager Neil. So anything that would come down to like the city implementing or taking action would have to come from city council making that policy decision, and then manager Neil directing staff to fulfill the work to accomplish that decision that council makes. So there's not this direct like commission directing the city or city staff to do work. It's got to go through council to make that policy decision, and then manager Neil takes that decision of the council and works with staff to accomplish that policy decision. So some of those things I think could be accomplished through this work plan process. It aligns in concept in the timeline, so perhaps we use this existing process instead of that working group. So we can have that conversation in that next piece, or probably now, but I think just as you're thinking about work plan, what could that be for 2021? It might include some of those policy exploration ideas.
Well, I have a couple of comments on that. First of all, a little historical background. You know, for a long time, Ross was our coordinator, and he did not have a lot of time to do things. So most of what the Energy and Environment Commission did was volunteer activities. And so that's kind of, I'm afraid when I think about things, I still revert to that. So it was a lot of, you know, education and stuff, and it was very much volunteer driven. And I know that staff has tried to professionalize our work, which is wonderful because then, you know, we don't burn people out and stuff. But so if we've kind of stepped over that, I'll take responsibility for that, thinking historically about, well, volunteers have done a lot of the work of this commission in the past because we simply didn't have staff time to do any. So it's encouraging to know that we've got staff available to do a lot of this work now. But if we overstepped our bounds with that, I'll take responsibility for that, just looking at it historically. One of the things I am concerned about, though, is we will be we're not going to get a climate action plan this year. And we delayed it by a year by doing a study and report, which was wonderful, but it did not include any action. And we're really anxious to move forward with things. And if it's a whole nother year, you know, and if I want to see that I'd like to think that there are things that we can do that don't require city staff to do. And I don't know what that is, but I'm really a little concerned that now we're going to lose 2 entire years to something that, you know, in my first year on the commission, kids started asking for a climate action plan, and that was 5 years ago now. So the level of frustration is a little high among the commission. I you know, speaking for myself, but also I've heard that from past teenagers really wanting to see us do something and then banging their heads against the wall when it doesn't happen, figuratively, not literally. But that being said, one of the things that Commissioner Haran and I had a meeting with a guy here in town who wanted to do a residential recognition program like our business recognition program. And I I don't know what that looks like, but this year we did not schedule anything to encourage residents to take action in their own homes. And the year before we had the big push to do home energy squad visits and have people adopt wind source. And we kind of tabled that. And I know Commissioner Hilda Martinez, one of the things she asked about is like, where are we on that? And I was like, well, we kind of tabled all the residential stuff to get moving on this climate action plan. So again, we are losing some time here. But I'd like to just put something forward. I think we need to do something with residents and resident engagement. On the work plans, one an idea I had come up with, which is proposing to the city council a way for the city to have an official checklist. So when realtors are showing a home, they can show a form that says, the city of Edina recognizes these 5 steps as good things for homes to take. This homeowner has taken these 4 things, like, updating the insulation and stuff like that. This is just kind of a brainstorm idea. So I have 2 things. One is to add to our work plan for 2021, residential outreach, and then 2, some kind of recognition of residents who have done extraordinary and noteworthy things that should be replicated by other residents, as an example that could be replicated by other residents. So those are 2 ideas that I have, and I'd love to hear what other people are thinking about for 2021.
So in this survey, was this like done in 2019 to see like what was going to be included in 2020?
Yep.
We didn't include the to-go packaging ordinance, right?
That's correct.
Could we include that next year? Because I don't know, I got confused and I thought that was part of the plan. Then I looked at the actual plan and I didn't see it. So I was researching, and Minneapolis does have an ordinance like that. So we could do something similar to that next year.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Commissioner Haran or Commissioner Seeley, do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, we've put together a report that was already, wasn't it sent to council? I don't know, but we've got all the backbone for it. It's just be bringing it up again. So it would be really easy to put on our plan and actually do something about it, because we've got all the tools that we need. We just have to resurrect it.
Can I jump? I think those are great ideas, but not before we start thinking about what we're gonna do next year. We should evaluate what we have done in the 2020 working plan before trying to, because I guess some of the things that were on the working plan, some of them could move or be a follow-up, and then think about other initiatives, because I think we don't need to have a long list. I think if we only have 2 or 3, but if we are able to do those 2 or 3, it's better to have a long list that we're not going to be able to do. So I will first review what's in this year energy and environmental working plan, and then based on that, choose 1 or 2 more and add it to our work, because when we were doing the green print for the working group, that was one of the things that came into the discussion. We should select things that we're able to do, because if we don't do that, then people get frustrated. People think they're not doing much. So I think, well, that's a suggestion. So I think we should try first.
Well, let's do that. Let's go through this year's working plan, and we'll talk about. Last year we were the only commission who finished all of our work plan. We had 5 items and we finished all 5 of them, and we were the only commission. So this year has been interrupted by the coronavirus, but the climate action plan, obviously we'll have to pull that forward next year. The tabling events for the organics and recycling, I don't know whether that's going to be a continuing need or not. I think that's part of your update, isn't it, Jessica, about where we're at on composting?
Yep, I can give an update on that a little
And,
bit
you
later
know,
on.
I don't know whether that's something that we're gonna need to continue to help with. We haven't been able to do anything this year because there aren't any events. With the business recognition program, this is an ongoing one. It's a good way. It's not ever going to be done. I hope we get every business in Edina. We have 4,000 businesses, but it's an ongoing recognition program. So I don't want it to finish because I like it, and and it's really been pretty effective. There's not going to be a cross-commission committee meeting with the HRRC. They met end of last month and decided they're going to do something on race and equity instead. So we're off their dance card. Initiative 5 is feedback to the Parks Initiative. And who was doing that? We appointed somebody last meeting. Do you remember?
I'd have to check through the minutes.
What was it?
And so I don't know, you know, that's a one-time thing if they're going to continue to do that. And then the 50th day anniversary of Earth Day, again, that was canceled because of COVID-19. So really the only thing that we're not working on that we could have been is the climate action plan, and we can't do that because we don't have a coordinator. So
but like, for example, those three, like the climate action plan, the organic tables, like to promote, because based on what Jessica said, the response hasn't been as good as we thought that it's going to be, right? With the organic recycle. And the business recognition, I think those three should keep on as an initiative or like as a follow-up for next year, or
okay. Yeah, that's great.
Suggestion. And maybe add some other ones, like the ones that they, like Anna mentioned, and the ones that you mentioned with the residential, I guess.
And I also have a comment about the HR, what's those initials?
Human rights and relations.
I think that's something that, I know we're not going to do event, but I think it's something we should be thinking future-wise for some kind of collaboration, or just, there's such an intersection between social justice and the environment. And I feel like there's something that I feel like we should, as a city, recognize that, the fact that, you know, I don't know, but I feel like there's a way that we should and can work together on environmental pieces. Or so I would like to see something still in our work plan that includes them.
And I was just going to make a comment on the organics thing. I mean, maybe an option. I mean, I agree with Hilda. It doesn't make sense for us to put things on a work plan and not be able to get to all of them without really knowing kind of what assistance Twyla might want or need. You know, another option would be to revive the working group that we had once upon a time, and maybe, you know, not make it be an official part of the whole commission, and just and have that work be done through a working group. Just a thought.
And well, we'd want that to be, I think, part of our work plan. I think that, as you know, the city's trying to professionalize what we do. And, you know, we had that standing water working group for a long time. It was never really part of our work plan. And I think that they tried to kind of control that a little better, or streamline things. I don't know the right verb, but I think that's a great idea. And what we're doing at this point too, we're not going to make any decisions. So let's not limit anything. So let's put a list of 15 things together, and then we can narrow it down. We have 2 months to narrow it down, but let's brainstorm now, and then we can limit it later.
Mm-hmm.
So Jessica, in your notes, let's make a list here. One is to continue or keep on the list initiatives 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right. Number 4 was the human rights and relations, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And I have no idea what's going on with the park and rec.
Yeah, they have had meetings canceled and have been just paused as they're trying to adjust. So they might have been one of the most disrupted departments as far as everything with COVID. So that was kind of put on hold as they're coping with all the other changes.
Yeah, so let's leave that one on as well. That was one I believe that came from the city council. So, so then we have those, and then what else? What are people thinking? Is there anything in particular? We don't have anything going on with water.
Caroline, in this list that you have, the results in the survey, there's one mentioning the tree ordinance. Do you know what they were thinking about that one? Help pass a tree ordinance, the number 4.
Yeah, let's put that on there too. The city council, I think 4 commissions talked about trees, and the city council took it off of everybody's work plan. So
that was gonna be my big push, was more trees.
Yeah.
If we can get that back on, I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
How does that work? Like, if you want to cut a tree here, you have to ask for permission to the city, or people just can go and cut out their trees?
We have a tree ordinance. It's very weak. Jessica, you want to? Are you familiar with the tree ordinance?
Not enough to really speak to it with any clarity here. I think it was mostly, my sense is, geared towards when houses are redeveloped, where all the trees, and then there's a certain size where you can't remove it unless you absolutely have to. I think it's to restrict just removing all of the trees. I don't know it off the top of my head in enough detail to really
Yeah.
I have a couple of additional things that go in with that, and that is kind of revisiting, basically the training of the arborists and the people that are responsible for trees in the city, making sure that they've got the support and have the proper training, current training. Tree maintenance has changed quite a bit. They're doing, due to climate change, there's different ways that trees are being managed and shaped and pruned, and there's different types of trees that are being encouraged to be used now than there were in the past. There are programs out there where there's access to tree stock. Are we really accessing that, and extra funding, with the goal of kind of increasing the overall tree canopy of the city, including some of the components you just said with private trees and development and tree size. There's an equity component. Do we have, trees in general are associated with a better quality of life? Are we making sure that trees are part of everybody's lives across the board? So anyway, there's a lot of components there that touch equity, health, parks, planning. So and overall, I think it's a relatively easy thing to do.
So what I want to just kind of push back and reword what you said and tell me if I get it wrong, but I would say, in addition to help pass an enhanced tree ordinance, and it would be enhanced in that the penalties or the requirements of when you take a tree down that's not a diseased tree would be, right now you take it down a great big tree, you can replace it with a little tiny tree. But this would be a little bit more meaty and have some enforcement to it. But then I'm also hearing what you're talking about, Richard, is sort of an overall tree policy, like where is our tree canopy? Is it equitably distributed? Things like that is really more policy than ordinance. So
well, it's almost more strategy. where are the areas that need to be focused on. A lot of cities inventory their trees, especially key older big trees. I mean, they track them.
Yeah.
They GIS them, and they have a database, and they track the health. And I mean, there's all kinds of things that a lot of cities are doing. So I don't know how much of that we're doing with that, but where I think it would be good to evaluate the gaps and figure out what else needs to be done.
Yeah, so policy, strategy, and ordinance with trees.
Yeah, because also another thing for adaptation, also trees are very important. Like that's what I'm asking, because two things, like what Richard is saying, besides having an inventory and these things, that it's better, it's healthier to live around trees. It also has a thing to do with adaptation, like now it's so a lot of the adaptation measure has to do with nature-based measures. So I think also a part of education to the neighbors. And I'm asking this because I just in my street they just cut a lot of trees this past week, and I asked one of my neighbors why did he knew that it was sick or something. I said no, I just was bored with it, and he just cut it.
Oh, good God!
So that's why I'm a little bit worried that people. I understand that some of them could be a risk, but if there's not we need to make sure that people don't cut the trees, because it has to do with adaptation, with also mitigation, and with the well-being of the neighborhood, the citizens. So I guess that's what I'm asking. I brought it to the discussion. So
I know of some neighbors. I know some neighbors in blocks that are together to pool their resources to buy trees so they can plant trees along the whole block. So in areas like that, I mean, how can we get that information and encourage that and help provide other motivation or incentives or for other blocks or other neighborhoods to do that, encourage people to do that. I mean, that's a great neighborhood activity. Get your neighbors together. Who wants a tree? How can we, maybe there's a little bit of a subsidy somewhere to do that, and then the neighbors have ownership of that tree to make sure it does well. But anyway, we could go on. We can talk about this the rest of the evening here. But I mean, there's a lot of.
We should, but I guess we should keep it on like a part of maybe of the work plan, or as a component of something.
Yeah, tonight we're not going to make any decisions, so we can put down as many things as we want, and hopefully trees will make it on the list this year. But
is Luther still in that role for the city? Is Luther still doing that? Okay.
Yep. Luther is the city forester. So we have a forestry department of one, and that is Luther. And he's awesome. So
he is awesome. So the thing is, how do we get his support, or how do we get him enough support?
Oh yeah. And yeah, how do we get him enough? Yeah. Luther is like the protector of trees. He even if we've got a project coming up where like he wants to save every tree, so he's a great advocate there. I think. Sorry.
I have another item to add.
Support him more.
Yeah.
So let's table trees. We all love them. I have another item. Last year we were approached by Eden Prairie and Bloomington to do in a contest to help push down our greenhouse gases. I don't know if it was Home Energy Squad or what, but I'd like to put working with other cities on climate action as one of the options.
I feel like that's a great idea. Like the project there was thinking of doing that like between schools, like a competition to see not like greenhouse gases, but like energy like consumption, I guess was like what we were thinking of doing.
Yeah, well, and energy consumption, of course, we're worried about because of the greenhouse gases.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we can word it. We'll figure out how to word it later. Oh, bye, Paul. Thank you for coming.
Okay. Speaking of that, this is Ukasha again. Do we have a plan in place for an outreach? like let's say this year we're not doing the climate action plan. So do we have a plan that we can outreach to communities, especially the underserved communities, to onboard them in a participatory approach where they can contribute and bring ideas to the table as well? So if not, then we can collaboratively talk about that. I mean, how can we engage other communities as well in climate action plan?
Hopefully that will be part of the climate action plan itself, is community input and equity kind of considerations and structure, even within the task force itself for community input.
So the process that has been used before with like a street reconstruction project, which I think the same thing could be used with the climate action plan project, is a public participation plan is drafted by staff, and then that goes to city council. So it could even be as that climate action plan, the participation plan that would help inform that takes shape, then the commission could review and comment on that as part of that climate action plan support before it goes to city council for approval. And that would be a great place to kind of describe like how you intend to reach people and what tools you're going to use and what you're hoping to accomplish and who the stakeholders are. So I think that is an important part of it. That's something that would accompany the climate action plan process.
The other thing is, how are we going to be communicating the whole process? These are multi-diverse, multi-linguistic communities in Edina, many of them who are interested in climate and climate action. So communication was another gap. So how, as a commission, how are we going to communicate in different languages?
Let me just jump in. That's up to the city staff. We as a commission, we're here to give our expertise and our research and everything to the city. And then the communication to the public goes through city staff. And that again is, you know, I don't know if you're talking specifically about the climate action plan or everything that we're doing. You know, we're just here to look at things and review it and to be an extra set of brains for the city council essentially. Things like how we communicate with the public, unless we want to have every one of our you know, commission meetings translated, we don't really communicate with the public from here other than letting people hear what our deliberations are. Jessica, do you want to?
Although,
yeah,
go ahead.
So to address your question and your concern, Commissioner DeCani, about how do we make sure that people have access to participate, the public participation plan should encompass that. And so as that starts to take shape and the commission has a chance to that, I think that's something to look for. We have our Better Together Edina platform, that webpage platform, to help kind of collect and archive that stuff. And then we've got a couple of staff. MJ Lehman is our community coordinator, a community outreach coordinator. She's phenomenal. And then Heidi Lee is our race and equity coordinator, and she's trying to focus too on, you know, what languages do we translate it to? How do we make sure that people have access to participate? So I think that's a really important part of it. And as that public participation plan strategy takes shape, that's something to make sure that all of those thoughts get into that.
But I think it's a good point, and I think so. The environmental movement and the people and organizations are fairly homogeneous, generally white, and I think it's important that we try and reach out and create partnerships with groups of people that don't look like the typical environmental movement. So I think it's beyond. It's not just how we communicate. It's also how can we reach out and create partnerships. And us as a commission probably aren't the perfect people to try and figure out those partnerships. So I don't know, Ukasha, maybe you could help us. But I think we need to really look into genuine partnering and bringing people, all of us along, because we need as many people as we can to care about the environment. And right now the environmental movement is really a bunch of white people. So beyond just like the staff communicating in languages, I think we need to just branch out a little bit more and look at how can we partner with people.
That's a good idea.
Let me riff off that a little bit, and maybe in addition or in place of partnering with the Human Rights and Relations Commission, we put on our work plan, how do we look at the inequities in the environmental movement, and how can the city and the commission just sort of research and report on where those gaps are. The words aren't coming to me, but what Michelle said, only we research and report, and what Ukasha said. So not just in the climate action plan, but in general, what we do, looking at the inequities in it, and how to broaden our audience and effects.
I appreciate that.
So I just want to check in on these kind of two things that I'm hearing is this most recent topic, this inequities in environmental movement and the gaps. And that seems like something that could be a 2021 work plan item that feeds into this big climate action plan. The tree conversation seems like something the commission can work on that would feed up into that climate action plan. So if you want to start looking at like things that you know are going to be part of the climate action plan, if you could start to like get into the work on those things, so that as that climate action plan starts to roll up, some of that is ready to go and say, yeah, we've looked at this and we've began to get some good information on it. So now you can kind of lift up that climate action plan process and help it move along. So you might focus some of those work plan initiatives on like facets or components of a future climate action plan, so that you can start to dig into those details and then push them up into that, or support that larger effort.
I think that's kind of what we were trying to do with what we asked Hilda to do. It's a little hard because we don't have the whole climate action plan is going to be staff driven, so we can't do anything. I'm sorry, I'm a little frustrated with all this because I feel like we're going around in circles. I think we put our work plan together, and these are things that we're passionate about. And if our new sustainability coordinator and the task force that goes together wants to use these things, they can. But, I think that we can't just hamstring our work plan to say it's all going to be part of the climate action plan and then just have climate action plan on our work plan. So let's make a long list of things. We'll go through them. We'll talk about this again next month. And then we'll, in September, between August and September, we'll do like we did before and survey what's your priority, who wants to lead it. But let's break it down so that we can make sure that we're doing something. But I don't want to just put everything into the climate action plan because I feel like we don't have a lot of control over that.
Right. And the climate action plan, I'm not saying you have one item on your work plan and that's what it is. Review and comment of that later thing. I'm saying, if you want to get in, talk about work on trees, that's something that might be really valuable later if you know that the climate action plan is going to have a tree component. If you know that there's going to be an engagement component of the climate action plan, get started working on that and figuring that out as its own item to support that later. So I'm not saying you wrap it all up and just don't name those things. I'm saying you specifically call them out. Our initiative 1, trees, policy and strategy.
I guess my point is that we can't know what's going to be in the climate action plan. So it's the chicken and the egg here. But Ukasha, you had a comment?
Yep, yeah. So the whole reason why I brought it up, the engagement piece and communication piece, thank you, Commissioner Michelle, for bringing up the engagement, strongly bringing up the engagement piece, is there is a group of women that I know within the East African community who are really interested and passionate about the climate and how they can preserve it. So they were working on plastic bag ordinances, and one thing that they have been asking me was how can we push that forward. So these are women sewers within the community, and they have been sewing the tote bags as a replacement for a plastic bag, which is single-use plastic bags. So their voices will mean a lot to our commission, like if they maybe be engaged or be part of it. So the other thing is I'm gonna add to this is maybe we can plan on having a town hall kind of thing for the whole general environmental commission, not the climate action plan only. So where we can get some inputs from communities, specifically like those group of women, or from any other disfranchised communities that needs to be involved in climate in our environment commission. So what do you guys think?
Well, I'm hearing two things. One is we should definitely put, a plastic bag ban on the list. You're not the only one who's brought that up, or plastic bag related ordinance. I don't know where that will go right now. You can't ban them, but I don't know what it is that Minneapolis has done. It's complicated.
Okay.
Let's put plastic bags just as plastic bags. The second thing is a community-wide environmental event, and you're saying that we should listen to what the community is saying, and I that's a really interesting new twist. In the past, what we've done is in educational type of things, and we've done a lot of different aspects, whether we've had a nationally recognized speaker come in, or Lauren put together this huge fair 2 years ago. 2 years ago, Lauren?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
2017.
awesome. But what you're saying is something really very different, and that is kind of a listening session for where the community is at in what their concerns are about the environment. And that's really innovative. Jessica, have you heard of the city doing anything like that? And is that within our capacity to do something like that? It's because it's kind of a cool idea.
We do have some sense from the community on how they feel about environmental issues from the quality of life survey that's done every couple of years. And then I can check and see what was done with the comp plan development, if there was any engagement specifically on the environmental topics. So we might have kind of a pulse on how people feel about it, but I don't know that we've ever done like a town hall kind of back and forth conversation about it.
We did
from the comp plan. The comp had a pretty big environmental, or the environment component of the comp plan. I think there's information there. We got a lot of input from that.
Yeah.
Well, Kasha, what if we just start with an informal meeting? Like, I would be really intrigued to meet with you and some of these women, and just start a dialogue with communities that haven't been at the table yet. And we start with a conversation and just see the interest, and see how we could either get them involved with the city or the commission, or again, like maybe that's just a casual way to begin a partnership, and maybe we end up having either a work group or something, but maybe just, like I said, starting with a conversation, just a casual meeting.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So there's a monthly meeting that they do that was over the phone since COVID. So they will be like doing an Uber conference, and then so they've been inviting people, but I can talk to them and see if we can do maybe something social distanced or a virtual kind of thing, to just start the informal meeting. That's awesome. That's a good idea.
I would love to do that. I've done some DEI training with Conservation Minnesota, and their whole thing is also trying to build partners, but being a group of basically white people, it's really hard to do that. So we have to try and see who are some leaders in those communities that would be willing to then talk to us and tell them what they're interested in. So I would love to have a conversation within my own community of that. And even if it doesn't have to do with the commission, I wouldn't be intrigued to talk to you one-on-one on that offline.
Believe me, there's a huge need out there. There's small business owners who doesn't know what the recycling is. They doesn't know. There's a small homeowners who doesn't know on how can they do these climate actions that will at least help us plan for the future. So doing something like that will actually have them voice themselves.
So a couple of things. Let me just going back to the work plan. Do we want to put something on Jessica's long list of a community listening event? Do we want to put that on the list?
Does it have to be an event, or can it just be?
Well, let's
a
just put
meeting.
the event on the list, and if you guys want to, I'm trying to figure out.
How about exploring ways of partnering with other communities, underserved communities, or the other voices in our community?
Mm-hmm.
So, but partnering to do what? That's the question.
Partnering to, yeah.
I mean, so Michelle, you with the business recognition stuff, right? That's an outreach program. So it's not just to get recognition, but to educate businesses. So if you and Ukasha sit down and get a list of businesses he's talking about, I hope they're, you can give your survey to businesses anywhere in the world, right? And say, here's our list. If you're in Edina, we can recognize you. But if you're not in Edina, here's a whole list of ideas. That's something the two of you can do offline, right? But
yeah, I'm thinking not just businesses, but also just
general, yeah, environment thing.
Right. One of the things I thought we had on the list was a residential outreach program, right? And when we do a residential outreach program, we could say a residential outreach program, including reaching out to underserved communities. And that should cover then doing the residential. I guess when we say partner with them, I want to know what we're going to partner with them on. And because to put something on a formal document like this, that's just partnering with, I don't think that will be approved.
Could the goal be to establish
with
a broad coalition of environmentally interested citizens in Edina, and to establish that coalition would be the goal? And then that coalition could be engaged in climate action planning and participate in town halls in the public participation plan for the climate action plan, so that we could already have that group of interested citizens that are ready to plug into other.
Well, that sounds like organizing, and that doesn't sound like city functions. I'll just say it sounds like you're creating a new nonprofit kind of group, which if you would like to do that and get nonprofit status and go through I mean, it's very easy with the Edina Community Foundation. If you want to put a group together, the bookkeeping and everything's all there. But for a commission to then organize a group to influence city policy, it seems unwieldy for what we do. I'll just say it doesn't seem like that's what the commission is here to do.
So to better understand you said, I mean, the commission can partner with communities out there, or residents, to collaboratively in a participatory approach, bring solution that,
I think what we're talking about is doing the work of the task force for the climate action plan. I just want to table all that. When we put the climate action plan together, we can have community input. We can have, we'll have a broad task force and everything. I just don't think organizing for the sake of organizing is something that should be on our work plan. And I'll just leave it at that.
Well, I'm going to push back a little bit. I think it's very important that we realize that all voices aren't at the table right now in the environmental movement. And I think we need to really be specific about making an effort to reach out to those communities and like I said, be specific about it. And when I say partner, I mean partner in seeing what are the issues that are a concern to them and how can we get you to the table and what are the barriers and what are those obstacles. And I think that we can't just tuck it in under everything else we're doing, because it'll just be business as usual and a bunch of white people will be making the decisions. And I just think right now it's a good time to say, hey, we are going to go out and try and bring in communities that don't have representation into this movement.
Okay, Jessica, can you please have you been keeping a list of these things? Can you pull that up as a screen? Because I think we're talking in circles here.
Sure. It's messy with my.
That's okay. That's okay. Because I think like 3 lines ago, that was one of the things we proposed, was putting together a study and report of partner or of reaching out to and connecting with and hearing from underserved communities. I think we talked about that, 10 minutes ago. And so we're, like I said, we're kind of circling around here. And it's really frustrating because I think I guess I had already gone on to the next thing because we had already put that on the list.
I feel like maybe like if a partnership doesn't work, or I don't know if it, but like Ukasha at the beginning, just having a town hall in general for, of course, like everyone's voice to be heard, but also I feel like there, maybe I wasn't super informed before I was on the commission, and maybe that was like my fault, but I feel like there's not much communication from like what the commission is doing, and I feel like there's like a lot of people out there who like Okasha said are interested in climate change, but they have like no way, or like, I mean, I guess they can go to the meeting, but I feel like a town hall would be like a good idea to like get their input.
So there are two different options here. One is an outreach meeting, which was Ukasha's idea, which I think was a great idea, and it would just be really helpful, Jessica, to see that list, because we're going down a rabbit hole here.
All right, I'll summarize what I've got here. So
can you pull it up? And I know it's messy,
I'm not going to do that, only because I don't want it to be part of this record when it's really just my super rough notes and it's on video, and someone might take that shot and make it like, this is what you've decided, and it's like super messy notey. I'm not going to put it on there, but I'll read it to you.
Well, you know what? I think we've got a lot down, Carolyn, and like you said, we're not voting on anything, so I think we have those ideas on the record. So I don't think we have to wordsmith this.
I think these are all wonderful ideas. I just really want to make sure, though, that we remember what the commission is. Okay, and we have been, the city has been trying very hard to get us to get us more in line with what commissions do. And it is our job to inform the city government and the city council about different policies. And so it is very important to capture these ideas. But the problem is the sort of kludgy tools that we have as a commission. So I'm trying to translate this wonderful set of ideas. And I hear a couple of different things. One is to listen to what people are saying, and to specifically doing some outreach to bring underserved voices to hear what they're saying. And the tool we have for doing that is some kind of public meeting where people can come and we listen, right? Where instead of us talking and them listening to us, we turn the table around and listen. Another thing that we can do is we can research and report ways in which there are inequities in the environmental movement. And that is a little bit off because it's, how does that feed into our, advise and consent kind of thing phrase, but into our mission to be advisors, but we can work on that so that that's what the impact is, saying, here's what we've learned about the movement in general, and then we can move that to an education event, we can move it to advising the city council, but once we have that research, but that's a research type of thing. So, but then to organize people, and then we can also, as part of our climate action plan, make sure that our public outreach does have a huge component of this listening and equity aspect. Okay, so both in the plan itself and who comes to the table to advise us on it. So those are three things that we're going to put on this list. One is an outreach listening session. One is looking at structural racism in the environmental movement, just to throw a phrase to it. And then the third one is making race and equity a big part of our climate action plan. I guess I'm not comfortable saying, let's build a group of people to go out and do things, because we're not really an organizing entity. We're not here to organize a new community group. I think if we put that on our work plan, we're going to kind of get out of our over our tips, as they say, as skiers say. I don't ski, but if that's what we're going towards, I think that's outside the scope of our commission.
Maybe I misstated that, Carolyn. I'm sorry. But maybe we could edit that one listening session to one or more listening sessions.
Right, yeah. And I think that's a great idea, but I just want to stay within what we are capable of doing. And we can push that, you know, but I want to stay as a commission, because we're all passionate about this and we've got a lot to do, but we want to do things that are within our powers to do them.
So, and I think
can I bring quick suggestions? Like, I think what Ukasha is saying about these communities that are not represented in the table, like right now, maybe like now for the, we can use this, use him like for, because if we put this in the next working plan, we probably won't listen them for the working plan. So my suggestion will be, since we only have 3 months, why don't we, Ushaka, help us and he can bring maybe a couple of a short list of what they think we should be doing, and maybe they can be part of this list that we want to for the next working plan. I don't know. Maybe they have some ideas that we're not even conceiving, because they don't have our same needs. I don't know. So
absolutely,
maybe Ukasha can help us bring their concerns and try to see if from there we can have some maybe a couple of them that we can introduce and maybe put as part of the working plan.
I mean, if they want to come give community comment, that's great. And if Ukasha wants to meet with people and gather ideas and bring them, that's great. That's part of our role as commissioners, is to listen to the community and bring things forward. So Ukasha, if you want to meet with this group of ladies, or if you have other people that you want to meet with and gather their ideas and bring it next month for work plan items, absolutely, that's a wonderful idea. And everybody should do that. Go out and, you know, this is just tonight's brainstorming list. It's not the final list. It's not the wording. We have 3 months. So this month, next month, and September, we can have long, heated discussions for 3 times in a row if we want. And it's not final till December, really.
Yep, yeah, that's a good idea. This is Ukasha again. Commissioner Hilda, that's a good idea. But the only thing that will be like a little bit of a slowdown for that, then it will be like one community voice. So when I'm talking about the minority community, there's Hispanic, there's East Africans, Somali, the Black community, and you know, like that group of collaborative, the Middle East communities. So when we are going as an entity, as a commission, Energy and Environment Commission, like let's say hosting tea and talk, or a listening session, or a town hall session, then it collaboratively brings many voices, instead of, you know, like one commissioner going out to a community bringing a set of ideas that represent only one specific commission, one specific community. The other thing I was going to add to is, as a commission, I mean, we can also host like in a collaborative efforts with the other commissions like human rights and arts, like through a yearly festival kind of thing, where we display all our achievements. We can display, maybe we can host it in a park after this pandemic, have, you know, like display all the environmental stuff, and then the arts community will kind of display the arts stuff, and then the human right as well, because it's all interconnected. So throwing a festival honoring community members in a collaborative efforts can also be a good idea.
I think that's great. So we'll put down cross commission, across all the commissions, celebrating the work of the previous year, and with the broader community.
Can I just switch gears just for a second while I'm thinking of it too? Way back when Michelle and I worked on this to-go packaging ordinance, at that time, the whole plastic bag thing was part of that. So if that is really something that anybody wants to have on the list, those two things can go hand in hand. You know what I mean?
Okay, excellent.
Caroline, I just want to respond to, well, I want to ask you. I
Yes.
understand what Commissioner Ukasha is saying, that we need to hear all the voices. But I don't know, is there time in these 3 months that maybe we can organize a town hall that we can listen to all of them as a commission?
I don't think that, no, the answer is no. Because we have a work plan already for this year. And the staff would have to organize that, and they have their work plan for this year. One of the most frustrating things about the commission is that you do have to plan like a year in advance for things. So we're planning right now, this discussion is about what we're going to do in 2021. I think that the climate action plan, honestly, is going to have a lot of community output. And that's when we get our wish list of things that we want to do and how we organize that. And that's going to be the job of the task force. This is specifically about the work that these 13 people or 11 people are going to do next year. That's what the work plan is about. It's not about what the whole world is going to do or the whole city is going to do. This is about the work that the 11 of us want to do next year. And if, you know, I think we all have pretty good sense of what's going on. You know, we read the paper, we talk to our neighbors, people know we're commissioners. I'm not sure there's a whole lot out there that won't come under what we can brainstorm. But we do have time between now and next month and September to, you know, if you want to write a letter to the editor and say, hey, community, tell us what we should be working on, or, you know, post it on Facebook, or, I mean, there are lots of ways you can ask for input for what then you bring to the table. But I don't think asking, I don't know. I just don't know, Jessica, it doesn't seem like that's something the city has the capacity to do. I've never heard of that happening before, that putting a survey out to the public for what the commission's work plan should be. That's
Yeah, a few ideas. I think we've done some work in the past to get on how people feel just about environmental issues, which I understand is separate than outreach and engagement to underserved communities. I think that will be part of the public participation plan. It happens on a more project by project basis. If there are specific groups that we're really curious to learn from, you can always invite them to do a presentation or speak to the commission at any time. That can happen in any meeting here. If there's like the group that Commissioner DeConnie mentioned, if they wanted to come and talk with the commission, they could do that at any time. It wouldn't be a big, you know, town hall listening session. It would be maybe a presentation and then some discussion. And then I think I've got enough, I've heard enough conversation where I can craft these into some potential work plan items, and then we can revisit those when they've kind of been chunked out at the next meeting too. If people feel like they've had a chance to express all their feelings about that, I think I've got enough here. I can start to put those into items.
so one question I have is we don't have anything on water. And I don't know what people are hearing in the community. I know, Jessica, you hear, of course, you're our water coordinator. And Richard, you're well tapped into that. Is there anything that we should be addressing about water next year?
You know, there's one thing that I'd actually pass this on to Tara, and she's passed it on to somebody else, but I saw somewhere there's some legislation, state legislation, that states if you have an irrigation system, you have to have a sensor on it or something, something like that. Yes, and I haven't been able to actually, well, I've kind of forgot it until just now, but I would love to do some diving in. I get lost looking into that legislation stuff, but I would love to find out more if that is the case, and if so, how could we take advantage of that?
Yeah, so add water sensors to the list. How would we word that?
There is some legislation already that says if you're going to put in an irrigation system, it has to essentially be smart. We don't permit irrigation systems, so people can put them in with or without them. We don't really have a process to like check on people for their irrigation systems. And then I'm not sure how conversation has come up a lot in the water community, where, you know, how would you even enforce that? So what most people are doing is more of a instead of like essentially a carrot instead of the stick. So some communities are offering rebates for smart controllers. My professional opinion is if people can afford to put in an irrigation system, they can afford a $200 controller, and we don't really need to have a rebate program to help them. That's not the barrier. So I also, when it comes to like irrigation and water conservation, I think residential irrigators probably aren't the best way to reach that goal. There's several other things I would do first. I would look at tiered water rates and adjusting those, and maybe adding more tiers, so that if you're watering a lot, you're paying a lot for like that summer irrigation. So I think tiering and how you pay for water, and you can kind of use tiers to section out those who are using a lot of water for irrigation. That would be a really effective way to increase water conservation. That's a policy avenue if you guys wanted to explore that.
What if we said we want water conservation, research and report water conservation ideas, including tiering the pricing for the usage, and then also let's just throw in what would happen if we wanted to have sensors. Is that a you know, I know that I 99% sure that you're right that the tiering is more effective than the sensor, but then let's have that in a report. So what the effect of requiring sensors would be and stuff like that. So let's make that an item too. I like that. Thanks, Michelle.
Also, are the items that are on the work plan survey results, are those also going into that list? Because I would like them to.
Well,
that is up to the commission. I can keep everything, or if there's things you want to explicitly remove.
Well, I mean,
we're going to be voting on it anyways, and we're going to make a big list. Just throw them all in.
Put it all in.
Yeah, put them all in. But we don't need an educational piece on pollinators, or is that to follow up with what you did before, Michelle?
You know, I think it was, because right now I don't know if yeah, because I was thinking of maybe like signs that people could put in their yards, or, you know, something that maybe we're high schoolers again trying to, so that kind of an education piece.
Yeah, I got a contact from a lady who said, a couple actually, no mow May. Have you heard of this? Yeah.
No, that's hilarious though.
Yeah, like what is it for the men who don't shave in November? But you do that for your lawn in May.
I'd say put it on the list.
Can I go back to water for a minute?
Yes, please.
One of the reasons I came on the commission, I've got a water background, and had a real interest in in helping on water issues wherever I could. The thing is, we're in Edina, we're lucky that we have a pretty solid water department, and water's pretty well covered. So I would, I would throw it back to Jessica. Just from your perspective, it would be great to hear, maybe not on the spot here, but if there are things that you think would be well served by the environment, by our commission, promote that you see are gaps or aren't getting the attention that need to be tended to, if please bring that to our attention so we can help folks on that. A lot of the things that I was thinking about covering, water quality issues, things like that, I think are pretty well covered. So I think there's gonna be a lot of little things, that might be falling in the gaps or not getting enough attention that maybe we can help on if you think that would help.
Well, thanks Thanks, Commissioner Manser. That was very nice thing for you to say anyway about water. I think I can look through and see if we've got some things that would be that the commission could help with as from like a policy perspective. If I'm thinking water conservation, there's some stuff we can look at. Irrigation ordinance, there's some stuff the commission could consider looking at if they wanted to. Private wells, right now can still drill a new private well in the city of Edina. We're trying to encourage people to seal their private wells and use city water instead. So that might also be something if this commission were interested in groundwater protection. So I think there are some things that I could see and throw out into the universe if you guys were interested.
Yeah, I think education components are things to consider. Like you were talking about, like with irrigation, we may not be, we may not be able to do enforcement, but we can provide a lot of education.
All right, anything else that people want to put on the potential work plan?
Do we have a transportation commission team that will be working with transportation commission to identify our shared priorities?
No.
So do you think we can add to that?
We can, sure. And a joint project with the Transportation Commission. That's probably, I would think, probably to fall under the Climate Action Plan, honestly. But let's put it down. Anything else? Okay. Well, lost my agenda here. So should we move on? And this is the first word. This is not the last word. So let's go home and think about things and talk to our community and see what else we might work on. Remember, this is stuff for us as a commission to work on. So things like policy, events, we have an awards program, things like that. So think in those terms, and if you come up with more, we'll add them to the list next week or next month, and then we'll vote. And also think, if you like this idea, are you willing to chair it? Are you willing to take on and do the work? Because that was the limiting factor last year too, is that we wanted to make sure that everything we came up with, someone was willing to lead. So any other words on the work plan before we move on? Okay, so yes? Anybody else?
Do we have a bicycle advisory council?
That would be the Transportation Commission. That's not us.
Okay, perfect.
Okie doke. So
Okay,
let's go to 7C on our initiative, initiative 1, Climate Action Plan. So Commissioner Hilda Martinez, do you want to tell us the work you've done about a working group?
Thank you. Well, first of all, it was a joint work. We had the participation of Commissioner Lanza, Commissioner Satterley, and Commissioner Martinez helping on the development of this green print. And what we tried to come with was with something that we could be able to do without overstepping the responsibilities of the task force of the Climate Action Plan. So we defined 3 main objectives. If you want, I can read them to you.
I can pull that up here too, Hilda, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, I have it in my computer. So the first one was to create an inventory of possible actions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to be reviewed and selected by the Climate Action Plan Development Task Force. By this, what we mean is like we will try to revise several action plans that other similar sized cities already have. I know Lauren had already done some work in the document 3% last session. So we're gonna use that as a base, but we're gonna review other cities that are of similar size. And Caroline suggests that they have the similar type of government because there are some of others that could have different. If the government is not similar, it will be complicated to apply the actions that they are proposing. So that is the first objective. And the second is that to determine if there are steps that can be taken right now by the city with the support of the commission without a climate action plan. So like maybe this could, from this we can get some actions that we can do without having a sustainability coordinator or an action plan, a climate action plan. So basically it's like what we're planning to do is to research, and that research has to be based on actions that consider different sectors, the potential of reducing greenhouse gases, and that can be like measurable, and also try to have some activities regarding communication. So basically that's what we came to. That's what we think that the climate, that the working group can do without overstepping in other, like in a climate action task force. So I don't know if you think that it's okay, or should we expand it a little bit more? I don't know if you had, any of you had a chance to read the document. You're muted, Caroline.
Okay. I really like the inventory because, we just hand them a list of, here's a place to start, right? And here's what we've done. Here's what we can see other people doing. And that's a good summary so that, they can hit the ground running. As far as stuff that we can do without a coordinator or a climate action plan, I think Jessica made a good point that that's kind of what our work plan discussion is. Did I get that right, Jessica? Is that?
Yeah, I think if you're thinking, what can we do right now? What can the city do right now? The commission doesn't dictate the work plan of staff. So it can't be kind of this transition of like, here's a bunch of things, city, just go implement them. There is a process of like bringing those ideas to city council so that city council can give the final say on if that's something that they want to do or not. And then Manager Neal his job is to implement the policies of the council, and he uses staff to do that. So I don't think that there's a quick connection between like commission and staff and shuffling over some actions for the city to implement immediately. That's kind of that process of going up to council and back down through staff. So I think a lot of what you're proposing in the working group is really actually in concept and in timeline, really similar to the work planning process, where you might say, here's some things that we can do or could look at. A tree policy, for example, or the plastic bag issue, for example. And then that would go up through that work plan process and then go back through Manager Neal decides kind of how staff is going to implement that. So I think that section B of like what can be done right now, that feels like a work plan process. And then through this, the mention of a task force, that hasn't even been formed yet. Right now, for a climate action plan, the process is, hey, we've got to develop a public participation plan. How are we going to engage people? And a task force is an idea that coordinator will likely use to do that work. But the charge for that task force has not even been written yet. So I think it's a little unclear like what their job even is going to be yet. So it might be kind of hard to really support them when that hasn't really formed yet. You could certainly come up with some actions to offer.
So let me just capture that idea real quickly. So what we did in the summaries that we did with Lauren's report is we had some list of preliminary questions to be answered. And I think that that's, if any of those things, if the work plan, and I think it was kind of Lauren and Tara and I working on those questions. But if the working group wants to take that list of preliminary questions for scope and everything else like that, and see if there's additional work that needs to be done with that, or flesh it out, or did we miss anything? Lauren, like a good next step from what the work that you did? Do you remember that? We had quite a few preliminary.
I think so, although we did remove. Yes, I do remember that.
Say
Can
that
you hear
again.
me?
I think you cut up. Yeah, now I can. Yeah.
Yes, I couldn't hear you. Okay. Yes, I do remember that. And I think that's the reason why we opted to remove from the working group objective to define the scope of the task force. And so we don't overstep on dictating what this task force will do, but we set up an inventory, kind of a buffet of options that they could select from, you know, if their scope includes that work, which I'm assuming some of it will. I don't know. I don't know about doing the work for the task force, but providing the options for the task force is what I'm thinking might be more useful.
Yeah. So one is the inventory of ideas that are out there, which is totally, you know, they don't have to choose from the inventory, but it's nice to give them some materials. The second one is another inventory of scope. Is that summarizing what you just said?
The letter B in our objective was more targeted towards research that we could do, which would ultimately inform what we put on our action plan or our work plan next year.
Okay.
So, and that is not to dictate what the city staff will do. It's just to propose something that we could work on our work plan to support the cap.
Exactly. Letter B is more like it's something that can go into the action plan of the commission, right? That's what we were discussing.
Into the work plan, yeah.
Yeah, in the work plan of the commission.
Okay.
Under the purpose in the green print, there's one paragraph that says, included in the above specifically, here, I'll put it up on the screen.
Okay, yeah.
Right here, included in the above specifically review the policy framework of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Rochester to establish a renewable electricity goal by 2030 and develop a potential blueprint for Edina. That could be a 2021 work plan item, for example, as you can take that very specific, achievable thing. And instead of working at it as a working group or coming up with a list as a working group, you could take a specific action already and start to put it in your 2021 work plan to really explore that in detail. And then that's something that, as that climate action plan work starts, could support that effort.
Okay.
Yeah, we can put that in as an example of the actions that we could identify.
Yeah, I think if you just take some of those actions that you're just really curious about or you think have a lot of potential, let's just pluck those out right now and propose them as a 2021 work plan item.
Yeah, yes, that's exactly what we were thinking. Like having this inventory will give us some ideas, like that one that we can pursue without having an action plan, and some others that will probably eventually be part of the action plan.
Yeah, and some of the inventory that might be kind of like what we're doing just now with the work plan running. Like, let's just come up with a whole bunch of ideas, a whole bunch of things you could do, and then pick the few that we think you're the most passionate about to advance in your work plan. So I think the working group document feels a lot like the work plan process, where you come up with a bunch of ideas, and then you're kind of picking a few that you want to advance, and you could still share your whole list of brainstorm ideas at a later time with the task force once that gets formed, which would I'm pretty sure we're going to go a task force route, even though that hasn't been approved yet.
Do we still need to form the work group in order to do that work to compile the inventory?
Is that in the 2019 report, recommendations on parameters, is there a list in there already of
There is a
things or
starter
not?
list in the appendices of some of the actions that I teased out of similar cities that have action plans in place, but I didn't have time to expand on that as I would have liked. So I think it can definitely benefit for expansion.
I think
Do we
within
wanna-
this review the policy framework for, well, yeah, it could even be reviewing what other action plans have, and then you can add to that list certainly too.
So my only concern here, Jessica, is that if, because you are saying this more like an inventory of actions for us to do as a work plan for next year. So my only concern here is that if we keep this as a working group and we have to include members from the commission, I don't know if this eventually could sound like do they have to be part if it's only for our work plan? Like they could be part if we're thinking about this being part of the climate action plan. But if it's gonna be only for our working plan, do we still need to have them? Should we just do it as part of our work and instead of having a working group?
Well, let me propose something. Go back up to the top, if you would, Jessica, of this document. So part A could in itself be the working group. And that is, we have on our work plan, a climate action working group. And that climate action working group creates an inventory of possible actions for climate action plan. Okay, so the working group gets put together and you start brainstorming all the different things that you can do. What are the different cities, and taking the stuff that Lauren ran out of time to do because she put so much time into all this research and just, you know, it's such a massive thing. Take that and, you know, do some just the list of things that can happen. And that could be our work plan, could be this working group that then does the inventory for the climate action plan. Then part B is what Jessica is saying, something like the green energy policies of other cities could be its own own item on the commission's work plan. So the things that could be done right now by the commission, she's suggesting we put on our work plan. And so we pop back down again to that page 2, the highlighted, the policy framework of renewable energy, renewable electricity goal. That could be something in and of itself is a work plan item for the commission. So we have 2 work plan items plus anything else in here that's a actionable thing right now. So one is a working group that does the inventory for the climate action plan and anything else you guys come up with. So like looking at what we're doing in our work plan and saying, yes, those are things that we should pass on or whatever, you know, you can have a pretty broad discussion with the working group. That
Caroline, sorry, but my thing is, do we really need to have a working group for that? Can we do it as, because, you know, my only concern is that we need to get people from the community. And then we need to do that again when the task force for the climate action plan is done. So
Right.
my only concern is that people get confused and say, is it this part no, we're going to say, no, you're just going to come and give us ideas. And then you should apply next year probably for the task force. So that's my only concern for doing a working group for that.
Okay.
The community get a little bit confused and said, why are you doing, I was part of the working plan and then now you're doing a task force. So that's why I'm asking if maybe we can just do it as part of our voluntary work.
Well,
like the same group that did this green print, I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
if you're comfortable with that, let's take the stuff that you guys worked on and put it into the work plan or to a list of the work plan. Are you comfortable with that?
So I don't mind doing the inventory or working on the inventory. I don't know about that if the rest of the group has an issue being part of this working group. I don't mind about having this working group. What I'm concerned is in bringing people from outside and then repeating maybe the same process for the task. That's my only concern.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great. But what I'm saying, I think, is just a bureaucratic way of saying the same thing.
So it sounds like, Hilda, you're saying like, let's have this be a committee or a commission and not a working group. Still do that work, but as the commission and not the working group.
Yeah, like avoiding, because you have to publish it and then we have to wait for the people. So, and we have 3 months, right? So I guess if the other commissioners that are part of this working group doesn't mind, can we do this job without having this bureaucratic process?
Let's do. And that's part of our work group for this, our work plan for this year is to get ready for a climate action plan. So it's already in our thing. Did we form a committee last time? I think we did officially, didn't we? So you guys can just keep meeting and work on this without making it a working group.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
For me, it's okay. I don't know what Lauren and Anna and Bayardo, they're not, he's not here. I don't know what they think, but I don't mind.
Anna, what do you think?
No, I think that's a good idea. And I'd be willing to work on it, yeah.
Okay, Lauren, you're our queen of climate action plans.
I think it's a good idea. I have limited capacity going into the fall, but I think it's going to be the major push is going to be, as Hilda says, in the next couple of months. So we can have the inventory to inform, hopefully, the 2021 work plan items. And then we can expand on that too after that for the climate action plan.
Well, you guys did a great job putting all this together. It's so nice to every step of this, it's so complicated. We get closer to something that's really understandable and workable. So I thank you so much for the time putting into this. And let's just keep going as a committee.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Great.
I don't think we need a motion for anything, do we?
You do not.
So just be prepared every month to give us updates on where you're at. That's wonderful. Thank you, guys. So back to our agenda. Education events. Let's see, who is our, Bayardo's not here for the composting education events. I think we have determined that the one with the school district is not going to happen. Is that correct, Jessica?
Right.
Okay. And then, like I said, the HRRC is not going to be doing an event with us this year either. So I think in your update, you're going to talk a little bit about what Twyla is up to and the needs she has, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I think that's initiative 2, education events. Initiative 4, same thing. And then initiative 5, have we heard anything about that?
I have not. So I can check in with Perry again. Last I talked to him, that was just on pause as they were coping with all the other changes.
Okay, well, let's just consider that tabled for things outside our control. Excellent. Okay, so we're on to chair and member comments. Unless anybody else has a report that we didn't get to in this, we all have a chance to talk now. So Commissioner Haran, tell us about the Green Business Recognition Program update.
Actually, so nothing new since our last one. We're going to meet next week and go over the Galleria application and gold recognition. So nothing to report as of yet.
Would you like some more help from any of the other commissioners?
Always welcome to have more.
Oh, why don't you sort of give a little preview, because it looks like we've got some opportunity for some volunteering time coming up.
Yeah, so I think one of our goals is to find ways to outreach to other businesses, especially now with Galleria, how we can take that business and somehow use it to promote the program and use it to promote within the Galleria. So going to the tenants and seeing if we could get individual tenants involved. So yeah, so there hopefully, depending on how this COVID thing goes, we could utilize and brainstorm how to promote the program because of, like I said, a bit like the Galleria. So
Yeah. So would you like, do you have time to meet with Commissioner DeConi and talk a little bit about some of the businesses that he has access to, about how we would outreach to them?
would love to. Yeah. So we could maybe set a time offline to do that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. The other thing is I was leading on the HRRC, so since there will be no much to do with them this year, I think we can, I can focus more on what you're doing, Commissioner Michelle.
Great. I would love that. So, all right. So I'll just send you an email after this meeting.
Sounds great.
Excellent.
And if you need any more help, I'd love to help.
I will capitalize on that too. Thanks, Hannah.
I'll say our high schoolers who've worked in that group have been so super effective, because people love to talk to high schoolers. They're like, oh, wow, as opposed to old commissioners. So thank you, Anna. That's great.
And I'll make sure that I sent out an invitation for a Zoom meeting for next Tuesday at 7. So I will make sure that I send that out again with you guys on the list too.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. Any other commissioners who have comments this month? I have one, but I want to hear from other people first. Anybody? Okay. I got an email from the mayor who has an opportunity to look at he's part of the mayor's National Mayor's Conference, and they got something about the greening of city fleets. And Jessica, didn't we have an intern who worked on the fleet issue for the city? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah.
If someone else has a comment on that, go ahead. I don't know.
Does anybody else remember?
It was one of the Green Corps members, wasn't it? I can't think of what her name is, but yes, that's my recollection.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Measure Bean did a lot of work on
That's
that.
right.
And she's
Okay.
a Green Corps member.
So would you be so kind as to find her report and send that to the mayor?
Yes.
Because I think he'd like to see that. But that's the only thing that I've had on my agenda, I think, that I heard of. So yeah, well, you know, it's great that we're getting things rolling again. I'm really pleased with that. So thank you, everybody. And Jessica, staff comments.
Yes, I wanted to give you an update on that energy benchmarking ordinance. So as of yesterday, we are at 50% compliance, and our consultant said a good number to shoot for is 80% compliance. So there are some buildings that asked for an extension through the middle of July. So there was about a dozen of those buildings that are on an extension right now. And our consultant said that while 50% might not seem that high, Edina has the highest percentage of compliance out of all the cities that are participating. So St. Paul, St. Louis Park, Edina. So I think we're on the way. It's certainly better looking than the last update that I gave you. So that's the energy benchmarking update. Any questions on that?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask. So I went on the map, which is pretty cool, and it's in a Hennepin County map. I didn't see, there weren't any Minneapolis businesses on there. Are they not participating on that? Because I know they have their own map, but I kind of like ours better.
I will have to find out. I can check on that. Where is the Minneapolis data, and can it be added to the map? That one that you're referring to.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So going to that map, Jessica, why there are so many in black? They're not giving information? Those are the ones that aren't giving information?
Yeah, that might be, I think those are most of the public buildings, and that might be because the data was submitted and they might still be doing like a QA/QC or some kind of proofing before it gets published, I can double check on that. But yeah, there's a lot of black dots. They seem to be associated with the city buildings.
Okay.
And I think it's just the turnaround for the quality control on those.
So those are, okay, those are black, not green?
They're black, yeah.
Okay.
I can check into that and see what the delay is.
And the ones that it says not eligible, is that they haven't given the information?
Either
Go ahead.
it's based either on size or they're just a different category type.
Yeah. So for instance, a shopping mall, there is no Energy Star rating for shopping malls. So you'll see that Southdale's black because there's no such thing as an Energy Star rating for a shopping mall. It's like your television set has an Energy Star rating, but maybe your snowblower doesn't. So the Energy Star is a comparable building. So you compare, you know, McDonald's to Burger King or something like that. But there's no category in Energy Star for a shopping mall.
Okay.
Okay, cool. That's
Thank you.
exciting.
And then the next item, B, energy initiatives and transportation. There was some discussion about just what's happening in transportation with regard to climate action. So I checked in with our transportation planner on just things that he's working on that are related, that you guys might be interested in. And he's got a lot of things happening. He's also another one who's super busy. So speed limits, there's going to be some proposed, Minneapolis has adopted some changes to speed limits. So I think it was August 2019, there was some legislation that allowed cities to lower speed limits, whereas before there was a state minimum and that was 30 miles per hour. So that change happened in August 2019, allowing cities to opt to go lower than 30 miles per hour if they wanted to. So Minneapolis is in the process of implementing their plan, and both Minneapolis and St. Paul have plans for lowering speed limits. So the primary driver for that change from the transportation planner's perspective is related to safety. So safe accommodation for all users. So that would hopefully encourage more of that bicycle and pedestrian use on those routes. Part of the comp plan goals were to improve multimodal transportation. And so the idea is that if speed limits were lower here, that would support that comp plan goal. So Andrew is our transportation planner. He's going to be recommending a tiered approach at the July 16th ETC meeting. He's going to lay out his tiered approach presentation, so you can tune in to that. That's July 16th, that ETC meeting. You can watch it live or you can watch it recorded. And then he, on July 21st, is going to be at a city council work session giving his idea of what that tiered approach looks like, if you want to follow up on that. The next thing, I asked him what he thought about that potential change to the conservation and sustainability policy regarding funding for green fleet stuff, and any comments that he had about that. And he was kind of guessing that perhaps the reason that vehicles weren't included the first time, and some of you maybe were part of those conversations and would know more than me, but he was guessing is that every time you replace a vehicle, it's kind of innately a little bit more fuel efficient. So it was a way to not just have every new vehicle be eligible for funding from that fund, when really the intention is kind of if you were to go above and beyond that like for like replacement. So he recommended too, just to make sure that it's explicit in that, where it says it's not just you're replacing a vehicle that, well, they're all a little bit more efficient as technology just gets better. It's going that extra step to have it be the extra fuel efficiency and extra emission reductions. he is developing an EV strategy. He mentored a group of University of Minnesota civil engineering students in the spring of 2020, and they did a report to share what they thought an EV strategy could look like. And I can share that report with the commission if you guys are interested in seeing what their kind of student effort revealed. And we're in the midst of crafting our own policy right now. So if you have any comments on the student report, perhaps I'll leave it up to Chair Jackson to decide if that's something to look at in a future meeting and review and comment on.
Yeah, that would be great if you could send that out to folks, and then we'll put it on our agenda for next week or next month. That'd be great.
Sure. Yep. Okay. I'll do that. And then he's planning to bring his EV strategy to council before the end of the year. And that would be another opportunity for the commission to review and comment is right before that goes to city council. You'll have another chance to look at what his strategy is. He's hoping to do it sometime before the end of the year. As far as the public engagement on that topic, that will be guided by council. So that has not been decided yet. So you could certainly influence that as that strategy takes shape too, if you wanted to. Yeah, there's a review of what others or what peer cities are doing regarding EV strategy in that student report, so you can get a sense there for what others are doing.
Can you also include then Measure Bean's report with that so we can kind of see if he's taken into account her recommendations?
Sure.
That'd be great.
And then travel demand management, which is essentially the strategy, or it's a combination of strategies to get people out of single occupancy cars. It's a variety of strategies meant to encourage walking and biking and encouraging rideshare, van pools, mass transit, things like that. And it might be, you know, including amenities as properties are developing or redeveloping, incorporating into development things like bike racks, bicycle storage, or connecting sidewalks, or upgrading sidewalks. So that's travel demand management, is essentially that whole network and trying to get people out of single occupancy cars, essentially. The ETC work plan last year was to come up with a policy or ordinance related to travel demand management. That was a little bit delayed, but they presented to council in April of 2020, and council was pretty supportive of that. So they're working through this next step is to figure out what the policy direction is going to be based on that report out from the ETC.
So Commissioner Hilda Martinez had some questions about that, and I shared that with her. Is there a chance for the public to talk to the ETC with questions or comments? And Hilda, if you want to weigh in, that'd be great.
Yeah, I remember I gave you some inputs. Well, I asked you if you could give some inputs in the travel demand management strategy. So,
yeah. And they were great ideas.
So yeah. Well, I remember you gave me, you told me to reach out to him, but I really didn't. But yeah, I wouldn't mind reaching out to him and ask him if we can still get some ideas.
Yeah. Or even if, yeah, if there's a public meeting that would be easier to, you know, to be a part of or something like that. If you can let us know the way we could participate in that.
Yep, and the ETC work on that is done, and right now it's kind of in Andrew Scipione's hands, the transportation planner, as he's forming up a policy that will eventually go in front of City Council. So I think if you have ideas or thoughts, the sooner the better to get those to him, because he's working on that right now. And then, of course, as that goes through that process of getting approval from council, there will be opportunities to provide more feedback. Generally, the earlier you do it, the easier it is to incorporate those ideas versus kind of sticking it in at the end. But
so
you can certainly do both.
So do you suggest we contact him directly, or?
You can send your comments to me and I can get them to him. That'd probably be the best way to do it. And if you as a commission want to put comments together, you could do that too.
I don't know that I shouldn't have revised them.
Yeah, well, Hilda, I'd encourage you to do your comments right away, but do we want to put that also on our agenda for next month? We'll just have maybe next month's, you're next month, aren't you, Jessica, with water? Do we want to put you in September then and maybe do transportation?
Yeah, sure.
So the meeting that I'm doing is also, there's a regulatory requirement to
Oh,
give that option, and I already did a public notice on the date, so
okay.
I would like to not move it if that's
Okay.
okay.
Well, then we'll just, if you could just send out a link to the policy to the commission and we could independently look at it. And if we have individual comments, we can send them to Andrew or to you to send to Andrew.
Yeah, send it to me and I can kind of package them all together and then give them to him.
Okay, because then we'll have a super packed meeting next month. I don't want to add that if, so we'll just individually take a look at it and comment. That'd be great if we could take a look at that. Thank you.
Perfect. Yep. And then the last thing I just want to quickly, we have a living streets plan, and Andrew was anticipating just doing some updates to roadway classifications, and it's grown a little bit from that. He and I are going to talk about some like stormwater management stuff with that living streets plan, and he's just looking at some other kind of larger, sustainability. There's a section on sustainability in there. So he is doing some updating of that living streets plan, and that will, I believe, also go to council for that update. So that would be another opportunity to check in on that and provide feedback before that becomes finalized. That's of all of these giant things, these giant planning efforts that he's working on, that one is the furthest away. So he still plans to get through it in 2020. But another thing that you guys just might be interested in, and I will make sure that you know what the schedule is going forward, so you can see it and comment before it gets approved by council.
Excellent, thank you. Wow, that's a lot.
Oh my gosh, he's so busy, but he's a rock star, so he'll do a great job on those things.
That's awesome.
The next thing, the organics recycling update. This was in the Friday report, so I just want to share with you a couple of stats. So far, well, all the carts have been delivered. 10,000 carts, or sorry, 13,000 carts have been delivered. 10% of residents have chosen to opt out of the program as of right now. Most of what Twyla was hearing was these are folks who are either single person households, or they just felt like they weren't generating enough to make it worth having a cart. And then the other thing that she mentioned was some neighborhoods where the garages were smaller were deciding to kind of surrender their carts, but they would still participate by having just like a central neighbor that has the cart. They felt like they generated so little that they could essentially just like share a cart. So I think when people opt out, it's not necessarily that they're like not into it. They might just be kind of trying to, at a neighborhood scale, figure out what works best for them. So I think there's certainly people who are not interested in it, but there's others who are opting out, but also just figuring out their own neighborhood style of doing it.
So just a question on that. It seems like 10% is a pretty low opt-out rate. Do we have anything to compare that to?
Good question. I don't know. I'll have to ask Twyla how that compares to other communities, if that's high or low or
I think it sounds great, but.
Yep. That's just out of like a cart, accepting a cart.
Right.
As far as participation rates, as of a couple weeks ago, they were seeing participation rates between 25 and 30%, and that might just be kind of getting into a groove. It's so new. And then the other good news is the vendors reporting a very low contamination rate. So I know Twyla's still super busy. I talked to someone in her department a couple days ago, and she had over 100 voicemails over the holiday weekend. So she's still like right in the mix of it and super busy. As far as like education and outreach on the organics, that was a work plan item. the farmers market is going on, and Twyla thinks that more like tabling or handouts would be, people would appreciate that. She doesn't have the capacity to do tabling right now. So if Commissioner Lanzis wanted to incorporate that, get some volunteers to table at like a farmer's market or something to help Twyla, that would be, she thinks that would be valuable and helpful for her. There are materials that we already have that we could provide, but we just don't have the staff capacity to be out there doing a tabling event. So I can follow up with him on that. If it sounds, I've been hearing he's kind of working through that with people, getting that coordinated.
Excellent. Wow. Well, if other people want to chime in, please do it. Please tell Twyla we're really pleased. I think these numbers are great. I mean, we just put out our first one last Friday because our card had just arrived. So I think part of the participation rate is just the gradual rollout. But you know, I'm very pleased with this, and I want to thank her for her hard work. That's great. Anybody else have anything to pass on to Twyla?
No, it's exciting news, especially for just starting out. I'd be happy to help table if you want to write my name down.
Yeah, me too.
Great, thank you. And then the last thing, which I mentioned a little bit already, was that sustainability in the engineering department, that reorganization. I think it's Manager Neal wants to spend that money, get some projects going, and the engineering department is good at executing projects. We have a good relationship. The facilities division is in our department now, so I think there's a lot of synergy there for getting that stuff done. We have a project management focus in that department.
And to kind of echo what Commissioner Manser said earlier, I hope that when they do hire the new sustainability coordinator, that person does get to spend some time at City Hall as well, because I know that was a big part of what Tara did, was building those relationships in every department to think sustainably. And I hope that continues to be part of it. I understand that the bulk of the work is done through the engineering department, but that policy aspect is really important too. So I would pass that message on.
That's a good comment. I will include that in my summary to Chad about the CAS policy update, and just as the supervisor of that position.
Excellent. So, all right. Wow. Well, we covered a ton of stuff, and brainstorming always takes a long time. Thank you, everybody, for your participation and great ideas and really strong discussion tonight. Lots of really innovative things. So we'll keep up the good work, and hopefully we'll get back to our really super streamlined, fast meetings, but this was important. So Jessica, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And that was who?
Lauren.
Okay.
Saturday.
Richard, are you seconding?
Oh, I'm seconding.
Okay.
As long as we take roll call again.
Will you please take roll call to let us go?
Chair Jackson.
Aye.
Commissioner Takani.
Aye.
Commissioner Haran.
Aye.
Commissioner Manser.
Aye.
Commissioner Hilda Martinez.
Oh, you're muted.
She said aye. She has her mic on.
Commissioner Setterly.
Aye.
Commissioner Seeley.
Aye.
Student Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Hey.
Bye.
Aye.
Bye, everybody. Stay healthy.
You too.
You too.
Yeah.